But Zong was then acquired by PayPal in 2011, and you joined as a VP. It was, such a transformative institution. When you think about like one to two of the biggest takeaways for you from that experience that really impacted your mindset today, are there some that stand out?
So I think, the first thing is I was actually really passionate about PayPal. So when the acquisition closed, instead of staying in our office in Menlo Park at the time, I asked to have a desk at PayPal and I moved immediately, first day. And I wanted to try to figure out how to operate in this new environment at the company, which is an unusual thing to do. Like typically, if you're acquired, you're trying to preserve the unit that you've built, like the company, and not integrate yourself because it's a lot of overhead and complicated. But again, like I didn't know what I was doing. I had never worked in a large organization like that before. And so I went there, and it became really obvious at the time that the company really needed to innovate on mobile aggressively. And it didn't have a card present terminal at the time where Square was actually really capturing market share in the offline market. And so I decided that I needed to try to do something about it. And in the span of 6 months or less, we basically had our product in the market, which was the first hardware product that PayPal had shipped. And, that changed the trajectory, I think, of what followed because, a few months after I joined, Scott Thompson left to become the CEO. Scott Thompson, who was leading PayPal at the time, left to become the CEO of Yahoo. And of all of the people who were on that leadership team at the time, I was probably the one really not wanting that job. I was like, okay, now I'm going to go back to startup land. But John Donahoe, who was leading eBay at the time, this was at the time where PayPal was still part of eBay, asked me to actually take over the leadership role at PayPal, which was an insane steep learning curve for me, going from managing 200 people at most to 16, 17,000 people literally overnight.
What was the hardest thing in that transition?
The hardest thing was actually that I came into this really cold and not really knowing how a corporate organization functioned. Which was kind of probably a blessing for me, but the hardest thing was actually the frustration of seeing so many people who were there not because they believed in the mission or because they were passionate about a specific product or solving a specific problem, but just coasting there and being at the company and taking their paycheck home and punching in, and that was really hard for me. And so the culture of the company as well at that time, like it had lost a lot of its innovation mojo, and a lot of their best engineers were gone. There were a bunch left, but a lot of them had basically gone to other companies over the years. And so
Can
I
you
started
change a
this.
culture at that scale? It's so big then. Can you change culture then?
Well, I think we did. It was very brutal. I mean, I kind of went with instinct at the time, and I started changing everything basically in a fairly brutal way. And the reason I decided, I proactively decided to do it in a brutal way is I wanted it to be a shock to the culture so that it became uncomfortable to the people who wouldn't be a cultural fit for the company. That's when we basically acquired Braintree and Venmo and tried to bring that talent and that energy into the company.